The sun sets over the golden fields of Sicily. To Rome, this island was the empire's grain basket, fertile, rich, and essential. But beneath those waving fields of wheat were chains. Tens of thousands of enslaved men and women, captured from Greece, Syria, Africa, all broken under Roman masters. Among them was a man named Eunus, a Syrian slave known for his strange fire both in his eyes and, they said, in his mouth. The masters laughed when he claimed the gods spoke through him. He would stand in the dust of the marketplace, eyes closed, whispering in tongues, and then before a crowd breathe sparks, real sparks from his mouth. They called him a fool, but the slaves listened. And in their hearts something ancient stirred, a hope long buried beneath Roman whips. Eunus said the goddess Atargates had chosen him, that the day would come when chains would melt like wax, and Sicily would burn with freedom. It began in the shadows, not with armies, but with whispers carried from one plantation to another. The time has come, they said. Eunus has seen the sign. In the winter of 135 BC, the island trembled. On the estate of a cruel Roman master named Damophilus, the slaves rose up first. They slaughtered their overseers and broke open the storerooms of weapons. And in the chaos, Eunus appeared, holding aloft a burning torch. "The gods have spoken," he cried, "Sicily is free." From that night forward, the fields of Sicily glowed not with the gold of harvest, but with fire. Thousands joined him, Greeks, Syrians, Africans, Gauls, the forgotten nations of Rome's empire. Together they formed a new army, one born from pain and rage. The Romans laughed at first. A slave army against Rome. But this was no mob. Eunus crowned himself King Antiochus, taking a royal name from the fallen Seleucid line. He minted coins, wore purple robes, and surrounded himself with men who had once been beaten in chains. Their first target was the city of Enna, the heart of Sicily. Behind its high stone walls, Roman citizens took refuge, confident that a mob of slaves could never breach it. But they were wrong. As dawn rose, the rebel army descended from the hills, thousands of torches in the morning mist. When Enna fell, its gates were drenched in fire. For the first time in Roman history, slaves ruled a city. For a moment, it seemed the world had turned upside down. The Roman eagle no longer ruled the skies above Sicily. On the walls of Enna, the banners of slaves fluttered in the wind, stitched from torn Roman cloaks, painted in blood and ash. King Eunus, or as he now called himself, Antiochus the Liberator, ruled not from marble halls, but from the broken temples of Enna. He walked among his soldiers barefoot, spoke to them not as a master but as one of their own. "We have no gold," he said, "no legions, no empire, but we have something greater. We have nothing to lose." His words echoed through the streets. Soon more towns fell: Tauromnium, Catana, and Agrigentum. For 2 years, Sicily, the Roman grain heart, was in open rebellion. The Senate panicked. Rome's governors sent army after army, but they underestimated the fire that drove these men. At the Battle of Enna's plains, Roman soldiers marched with polished armor, banners shining. While across from them, barefoot slaves stood in rags, wielding stolen blades. When the trumpet sounded, it wasn't skill or training that won. It was fury. The slaves charged, screaming the names of masters long dead. They broke through the Roman lines. They took the enemy's standards. For the first time, the legions of Rome fled before those they had once owned. But even as victory spread, Eunus knew something Rome could not forget. The Republic does not forgive humiliation. In the Senate, whispers turned to rage. The rebellion that had once been ignored now threatened the very idea of Rome. A new general was sent, Lucius Calpurnius Piso, a man famed for his ruthlessness. With legions hardened in Spain and Africa, he crossed to Sicily. The war was no longer a rebellion, it was a crusade. Enna's fields, once gold with wheat, turned to mud and graves. Town by town, the Romans retook the island, not with mercy but with fire. For every Roman killed, 10 slaves were crucified. And yet in the ruins of Enna, King Eunus still held court, now sick, gaunt, his dreams fading as fast as his army. "If we die," he said, "then let it be as kings, not as slaves." His last words would echo across centuries. Words that the empire itself could never erase. In the end, every rebellion burns brightest before it dies. By the 3rd year of the war, Rome had learned. They no longer sent governors or noble sons to fight the slaves, they sent killers. Legions hardened by years of blood in Spain and Africa. Men who didn't care for glory, only for obedience. As the Roman lines advanced through Sicily, every captured city became a warning. Crosses lined the roads like the trunks of a forest, each one bearing the body of a rebel. The message was clear: Rome remembers. But even as the noose tightened, Eunus refused to flee. When his captains begged him to escape to the mountains, he simply said, "A king does not run from the people who crowned him." He gathered the last of his men, what was left of 10,000, now barely 200, and retreated to the ruins of Enna, the same city where it all began. There, in the silence of the broken temple, he stood beneath the same cracked statue of Demeter where he had first declared himself free. The torches flickered, the wind howled through the hollow walls. He closed his eyes and whispered to the gods who had once made his tricks seem real. "If I am king, let my fire never fade." But there was no answer. Outside, the ground trembled with the march of Roman boots. The last of his soldiers raised their weapons. They knew there would be no victory, no tomorrow. When the Romans stormed Enna, it was not a battle, it was an execution. The streets that once echoed with chants of freedom now burned under the weight of Roman vengeance. Eunus was captured while hiding in a cave, his crown shattered, his robes torn. Some said he begged for mercy. Others claimed he laughed, that even as the chains closed around his wrists, he whispered, "You may cage me, but not the fire that made me." He was taken to Morgantina, paraded through the ruins like a beast, before dying in captivity, sick, alone, his flesh eaten by disease. His rebellion was crushed. Yet within a generation, others would rise. Spartacus in Italy, Athenian again in Sicily, men who carried the same flame. And though each one would fall, the idea survived. That a slave could be a king. History would not remember Eunus with glory, the Romans made sure of that. But his story whispered on, carried by the winds of time, by every man who dared to stand when the world told him to kneel. So when the fires of rebellion burn again, remember the name Eunus. The man who rose from the chains and became a king of ashes.